Hello, my name is Seth. Thanks for watching my videos on YouTube at How I Think. And in this video, we're going to be talking about OSPF, route summarization, route distribution, and Type 5 LSA. This is where ASBRs, Autonomous System Border Routers, come into play, and we'll introduce another protocol such as EIGRP or RIP. In this case, RIP will inject those routes into our OSPF network. And we'll look at the LSA, see how things function, and we'll also do some route summarization. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have a basic area. We have area 0, we have area 1, area 2, and then we have a RIP area, an external area. Right now nothing is configured, so I'm going to go ahead and configure these routers. And these are the ranges I'm going to use on all 4 of these links. These are the loopback addresses I'm going to set up in area 1, and these are the loopback addresses I'm going to set up in the RIP area. Okay, so I have my router 1 up. We'll get into config mode. Interface loopback 0. IP address all ones. We'll create loopback address 1, and we'll give it 2.1.1.1. Interface loopback 2. Interface loopback 3. Interface loopback 4. Okay, now we'll get into interface FA0/0. This interface, and it's in the 2020 range, so we'll give this one 2020.01. We'll give this one 2020.02. 2020 0.1 0. No shut. And we'll put this into OSPF area 1. IP OSPF area. OSPF 1 area 1. We'll go ahead and end this to show IP interface brief, and they'll give us all of our loopback addresses and our IP address on FA00. 2020.01. Loopback 0 is 1111, 1234. These are our routes. Okay, looks good. We'll jump on to router 2. Router 2 is an ABR. It's an area border router, and it resides in 2 different areas. We're going to config mode. Interface loopback 0. IP address 2.2.2.2. Interface FA0/0. No shut. We'll give it an IP address of 2020.02. We'll go ahead and place this into OSPF area 1 as well. We should see adjacency form between router 1 and router 2. Okay, there we go. And if you notice, it picked up the interface of 25555 for router 1 because that was the highest IP address given. We don't want 2.25555 as the IP address for that router. We want 11111. So what we'll do is I'll go back into router 1, and here I'll type clear IP OSPF. Oh, sorry. We'll type config T. We'll router OSPF1. We'll type router ID 1.1.1.1. It tells us we have to run clear IP OSPF process. Okay, no problem. Clear IP OSPF process. Hit yes. The adjacencies should drop. There we go. And then it's reestablished using the correct ID 1111 on router 2. If I say show IP OSPF neighbor, you still have the old one sitting here. The old one hasn't been dropped yet, so you'll see the old one drop in a second because we already have the new router ID established. So we'll give it a second or so. There we go. It's been dropped now. Show IP OSPF neighbor, and we are good. Perfect. Alright. So now we're done with area 0. I'm sorry, area 1. We'll jump on to area 0 now. So in router 2, interface FA01 is within area 0. So let's go ahead and configure that. We're going to config mode. Interface F0/1. No shut. IP address. That's a 4040 range, so we're going to say 40.40.0.1. 255.255.255.0. IP OSPF1 area 0. We're going to end this. So we're done with router 2. We'll jump on to router 3. Config T, interface loopback 0, IP address 3.3.3.3. Okay, interface FA0/0. We need to configure that. No shut, and the IP address we'll give this one is 40.40.0.2. And that should be 255.255.255.0. Yep. And we'll place this into area 0 as well. IP OSPF1 area 0. We should see the adjacency form between router 3 and router 2 now. And there we go. Adjacency has been formed with neighbor router 222. If I jump onto router 3, there we go. Looking good. Now we'll jump onto interface FA01. Interface FA0/1. And this is IP address. This is in the 60 range. 60.60.0.1. 255.255.255.0. IP OSPF1 area 0. We'll go ahead and end router 3. We're done. We'll jump on to router 4, which is our area border router, ABR. Config T, interface loopback 0, IP address of 4.4.4.4. Okay, we'll jump into interface 01, so that's in area 0. Sorry, interface 00. IP address is 60.60.0.2. We'll place this into area 0. And when I do this, we should see an adjacency form with our neighboring router of 3333. We'll give it a second. There we go. It's been formed. If I go to router 3, it tells us adjacency has been formed with router 4. Okay, looking good. So now we'll jump on to interface 01 of this ABR. So interface FA0/1, and this is in the range of 8080. Okay, no problem. I'm going to say no shut. IP address 80.80.0.1, 255.255.255.0. We'll put this into IP OSPF 1 area. I believe this is area 2, which is, let me get the site, area 2, yep. Okay. We'll end this one. We'll jump on to router 5, which is our ASBR. That is the Autonomous System Border Router, FA00. Okay. So we're done with this one. Jump onto router 5. Config T, interface, loopback 0, IP address of 5.5.5.5, interface FA0/0, no shut, IP address 80.80.0.2, and we'll place this into area 2. We should see an adjacency formed with our ABR of router 4. There we go. And this is telling us that router 4 adjacency has been formed. Sweet. Okay, so now what we do is router 5, because this is a ASBR, this also resides in a completely different network, an external network, which is RIP. So we'll go ahead and switch over to interface FA0/1, no shut, and the IP address here would be 90.90.0.1, 255.255.255.0. Okay, now here we're not going to say IP OSPF because it doesn't reside in OSPF. This is a completely separate network. So here we're going to say router RIP network 90.90.0.0 version 2, and we'll end it. That's it for now. We'll jump on to router 6. We'll say config interface loopback 0. That is IP address 6.6.6.6, 255.255.255.255. Interface loopback 1, IP address 8.1.1.1. Interface loopback 2, 8.2.2.2. interface loopback 3, IP address 8.3.3.3, and interface loopback 4, 8.4.4.4. Okay, now we're going to configure the FA00, interface FA0/0, no shut, IP address 90.90.0.2. Okay, since this is RIP, we're going to say router RIP network 90.90.0.0 and network 8, right? 8.0.0.0 version 2. We'll end this. Now if I say show IP route, okay, so it's telling us that we're directly connected to the 19 network, and then we have directly connected loopback addresses. Okay, so far so good. And if I jump onto it, router 5, so show IP route. Okay, so we have directly connected address that shows us we're connected to router 4, and then we have, because of OSPF, we have adjacencies. So those routes came through IA, right? Remember, IA stands for inter-area, which is multi-area route. Right? We also have the 8.0.0 RIP route that came in on router 5. We also have the area 40 and area 60. So area 60, area 40, area 20. If I say show run, that should give us a running configuration. Alright, so this is my running configuration. We come down to RIP and OSPF. Oh, I forgot to add one thing to RIP. No auto summary and the 8.network. Let me do that. Router RIP, no auto summary, and network 8.0.0.0. There we go. And show run as RIP. It's running a bit slow. I'll jump onto router 6 and I'll do the same thing. Config router RIP, no auto summary. We'll also put in the network of 80, 0, 0. We'll end it. We'll come back to router. Okay. So now we have no auto summary added. Okay. So now if I come to router 4, it says show IP route. If you notice, we don't have any routes from RIP. So on router 5, we'll go to config mode. We'll go to router RIP, and here this is what we typed in. We type in question mark, and it kind of shows us everything we can do. And what we're interested in is a redistribute. Okay, so redistribute question mark What do we want to redistribute? Well, we want to redistribute this into OSPF 1. And here we can do question mark, and we can see we can change the metric. But we're not going to mess with any of that. We'll just do, say, redistribute this route into OSPF 1. We hit enter. After we redistribute OSPF, we're going to go into config mode again. And we have to let OSPF know now about the RIP routes. Right, first we go into RIP, and we tell it about OSPF to redistribute that route into OSPF. And then we go into router OSPF 1, right, and here we type redistribute question mark. What do we want to redistribute? Well, this time we want to redistribute RIP, right? And then here you type in the subnet command, and we hit end. And that's all we do. And now if I come to router 3, right now we have no RIP routes. But if I type show IP route now and update this, there you go. See, now we have the E2, the RIP routes being injected into OSPF. And E2 stands for external route. Let's see. Yeah, external OSPF type 2 routes. It's being injected into OSPF. Now, where are these routes coming from? Well, they're coming from RIP. Right? This is the RIP network on router 6. These were the addresses that we set up, loopback addresses. And that's what you see here. So if we come back to router 1, same thing, show IP route. We'll have the RIP external routes in here, see? Pretty sweet. Okay, so now we've injected routes into OSPF. So from on router 3, if I say show IP OSPF database, now we're going to look at this and examine this a little bit. Now, what are we looking at? We're looking at first 5 LSA types. So LSA type 1 is saying on router 3, remember we talked about this last time, each router just advertises itself. So router 2 says, hey, my ID is 222, router 3 says my ID is 333, router 4 says my ID is 444. Okay? That's what type 1 LSA does. Type 2 LSA, similar to type 1, but it just tells us who the DR is. So for route 404001, router 2 is the DR, and for route 606001, router 3 is the DR. Right? That's all router 2. That's all LSA type 2 does. LSA type 3 is the summary LSA. Those are for ABRs. Right, so it's telling us who our ABR is for area 0, because remember router 3 is in area 0, but we have 2 ABRs, right? Area border routers. We have router 4 and router 2, and that's what it tells us here. Router 2 with the 2020 range, and router 4 is in the 8080 range. That's all LSA type 3 does. And then we have the next type, which is LSA type 4, which we didn't see in our first 3 previous videos. And that's all that does. It advertises where the ASBR, the Autonomous Sister Border Router, is located. So router 4 is telling us that, hey, I see an ASBR, and the ID for that is 5555. That's all LSA type 4 does. That's what it's telling us right here. And the next is LSA type 5, which is the external routes that we saw here, because it's connected to another protocol, another RIP protocol, and that's what type 5 is, external. And that's all 5555. That's the ID for, okay, that's the ID for router 5, 5555 because it's connected to RIP and OSPF, and telling us all the routes that's on ASBR 5555. So here we see all 5 types of LSAs, and mostly we'll just deal with the first 5 types. Okay, so now if I say show IP route, we have this long big list of routing table, right, with adjacencies and 12 different routes, and we have all the external routes, so on and so forth. Alright, what we want to do is we want to summarize these routes now. Instead of having each route being listed, and remember that takes up space in the memory for the routing table, let's summarize it to make it smaller. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we'll jump onto router 1. We'll jump onto router 2 because that's the ABR, the border router for area 1. Remember, area 1, we have all these routes. If I come to router 2 and say show IP route, I don't see it listed here. I see all the 8 dot range coming from the external, but I don't see the 2 dot range from here. So it's a small oversight, not a big deal. So here, I quickly type in config. I'll type in interface, range, loopback, loopback 2, IPOSPF 1, area 1, and okay. So if I come to router 3, okay, I see them in there now. Okay, perfect. Okay, just a small oversight. So as I was saying, the routing table is large, so what do we do to make it smaller? We jump on router 2, and we type config T, go into router OSPF 1, and here we type area, and this is in area 1, question mark, range, and the range would be 2.0.0.0, question mark, and the subnet mask is 255.255. Well, let's make it easy. Put 255.0.0.0. We'll hit enter. And remember, we do this on the ABR, area border router. Why? Because all the route is connected to area 1, which has all these routes, and we want to summarize those routes, right? It has all these routes. We want to summarize these instead of each one being listed. I just want to see 2.0.0.0 or whatever the case may be. However, it summarizes it like this. So now, if I end this and I go to router 3, type show IP route. Okay, before I do that, before I hit enter, see how it says 2.3.3 and it's listing all of them? Now if we hit enter, okay, and look what it did, it shortened it for us. See, 2.0.0.8. It shortened our routing table. It's taking up less memory now. Pretty cool. And we could do the same thing right here for external routes. Instead of it having listed all as E2, 8.1.1.1 and 8.2.2.2, so on and so forth, let's go ahead and minimize that. Well, we do this on, you guessed it, on the ASBR, right? The Autonomous System Border Router, router 5. Why? Because that is the router that's connected to this RIP network, and that's where we have all these 8 dot range, right? So we'll do the same thing here. We're going to config, we're going to router OSPF1. Now here we can't type area one range command. Here we have to type the summary command, summary address, because this is the autonomous sister ASBR. Here we have to type the summary command. So summary, and we want to summarize the 8 range, so 8.0.0.0 to 55.0.0.0. Hit enter, end it. That's all. If I come back to my router 3, type show IP route. And remember, before you have all these listed individually. Now if I hit enter, see, summarize it all for us. Shorten R routing table. Pretty cool. I'll go all the way down to router 1, say show IP route. Same thing. Shorten it for us, see? Show IP route. And no matter which router we go to now, we're going to be able to, if we do show IP route, we can see that it summarized the routes for us. So what was the only difference? On the ABR, you type area 1, whatever area you're in, range, and then we specify the range for these routes, which was the 2. Instead of 2.0.0.0 to incorporate all these routes. And on the ASBR router 5, the difference was that instead of range command, the area range command, we typed summary command. And that's all we did. And now all these routes are summarized. So what did we learn? Well, we learned how to set up a multi-area OSPF network with area border routers with an ASBR router, which is connected to an external network, in this case a RIP network, and we learned how to inject the RIP network into our OSPF and have it distribute to all the routers. So devices in area 1 are able to see the devices in the RIP network. And if we had another network, for example EIGRP, we can do the exact same thing. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please stay tuned for my next video and subsequent videos after that regarding EIGRP and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.